What if being a brilliant technical thinker wasn't good enough? What if your ability to communicate clearly, confidently, and with presence was actually the make or break skill that defines your impact in your career? Especially in a world of AI, human and soft skills and power skills are more important than ever. Well, my guest today knows exactly what all this feels like. He's a communications coach who has spent over 2 decades helping data-driven analytical leaders turn complexity into clarity. And as someone who's walked the tightrope between tech and business myself, I've seen firsthand how the most critical ideas often get lost in translation. And this is just one of the many reasons I was excited to get my guest on today, because he's going to share practical strategies to help techies speak up in fast-paced meetings, manage nerves during high-stake presentations, and win over even the most skeptical stakeholders. Whether it's using metaphors to unlock minds or slowing your delivery just enough to command the room, my guest shows that technical brilliance doesn't have to come at the expense of a human connection. So if you're a technical person that's walked out of a meeting thinking, oh man, they just didn't get it, or worse, I didn't get heard there, then hopefully there'll be a few takeaways in the conversation today that will help you knock that next meeting out of the park. But enough from me. Let me officially introduce you to my guest. So thank you for joining me on the podcast today. Can you tell everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Salvatore Manzi. I'm a communications coach helping data-driven leaders turn complexity into clarity. I myself am an analytical-minded person, and I found as I began my speaking career that there weren't a lot of tools for data-driven, introverted people. They're more guided towards the extroverts. And so I created frameworks and techniques and principles around communication, put it into a book, clear and compelling. And I've been coaching and training tech leaders for about 20 years now.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you join me, and there's so much I want to talk with you about, because before doing all this, writing about technology and talking about technology on this podcast, I worked in IT, and I was very aware that in some of those stakeholder meetings in big corporations, that the technical people, the people in IT, when they started talking, everybody else in the room scattered around the business, they were thinking about what they were going to eat or what they were going to do at the weekend. There seemed to be a clear disconnect there. So I kind of positioned myself as a bridge between those two worlds. But from everything that you see out there, why is it so many technical leaders struggle to convey a clear and concise message and oftentimes get lost in too many acronyms?
You know, it's real what you're describing, and I've been there myself, and I've coached leaders who have been in the situation just like that, where when they start speaking, people just zone out and they go to something else. And I would offer this: meaning over metrics. When I'm a data-driven person speaking to a data-driven person, I can download information. I can download all the data, and that person can infer the story, the relevance, all those things. But the brain is a meaning-making device, not a precision recording device. So even though I have all of my data correct, downloading all that data without the meaning will create a disconnect. And so what's often happening in those situations is that the audience is not seeing the relevance, or they're not understanding the connection between those things. So when you're going from data people to key stakeholders in other parts of the organization or clients and so forth, you want to begin telling stories. And I offer this: dialogue over download. Every 3 to 5 minutes, stop yourself. Stop yourself and check in. Offer some other pointer, ask them how this information is landing, and then you'll create more clarity and more connection. And you're going to be known as that person that walks in the room and everybody puts their stuff down to actually listen to you, which is good.
And I think the one thing that everyone within an organization can now agree with, or should agree with, is that data-driven decision-making, that is where it is at, and not just listening to that loudest voice in the room that seems to dominate those conversations. So how can data-driven leaders effectively use things like storytelling to deliver their message?
I love that you say this. Neil, this is our time. This is our time. This is our time because people are finally recognizing the importance of the data and how the data gets analyzed and used. Like, this is our moment, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to get it without storytelling. They're just not going to get it with. And I'll tell you a story. I had a client who was at the time a manager managing the data for a large healthcare organization. And she would go into meetings and she would get ignored, dismissed, like she couldn't move the thing forward. We started using an analogy with her Prius. She drove a Prius and she would say things like, "You're trying to put gas in my Prius." And people started turning around and she became known as this like electric car. And she's like, "You're talking the difference between, you want to put an oil change in my Prius? It's not going to happen." Here's the fact. Metaphors move minds. If you can train yourself that after you deliver all that data, all that precision, you switch and offer some kind of a story or a brushstroke of a metaphor, you're going to be allowing them to connect with your material and start moving towards progress and actionable results. So practice using metaphors on everyday objects and develop your own like brand in the office. Like what's your hobby? What's your passion? For me, it's coffee. Like I can metaphor coffee to any situation, right? But find your passion and then start saying, okay, my project is like this passion in da 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 da, and start building out a metaphor toolbox so that you can start dropping them in the meetings. People will start listening.
And I think we've all walked into those meeting rooms and seen those slightly intimidating characters, those strong personalities that want to dominate the conversation that you know that you're going to need to win over. And very often that can make you nervous and create a whole other set of problems. So what are some of the ways that a leader can manage their energy, especially things like nerves or talking too quickly when they're presenting, especially in high stakes engagement when there's a few people in that room that they need to win over? Any tips or advice there?
Yeah, who hasn't been there? Like, who felt that like nervousness? Like, oh man, there's going to be a decision made here that's going to affect my career. And I would offer a few things. One, reframe the rush. Right. It's a healthy thing to experience that rush of adrenaline nervousness, because if you don't, it means that you're a narcissist or you're a psychopath, because every human person is going to feel a little bit of nervousness at their presentation in front of other people. So reframe the rush as this is normal and this is excitement. If you're on a roller coaster and you're going over that hill, you can either scream or you can laugh. You have a choice. You can say this is scary or this is fun. So when you get into those moments where you feel that rush of adrenaline nervousness, just reframe it. This is excitement. I'm excited to share this. I'm excited to be here. Second thing I would offer after you reframe that rush is to manage your physiology. You know, a boiling pot can only be contained for so long, and it needs to be a pressure valve at some point. Same thing with your body. If you're experiencing a rush of adrenaline and energy, you can't just sit calmly and coolly. You've got to find a way to release it. And the easiest way to do that is with your breath. Simple box breathing where you count your breaths will calm your physiology. So we reframe the rush. We've worked on our physiology. The third thing I would offer is not about me. When I turn the lens inward and worry about my data and how they're going to perceive it, and did I get that data perfect and all this stuff, I get locked up in my head and I disconnect from the audience. It's not a good thing. If I remind myself this is not about me, this is about them, this is about my message, then I take the focus off of me, put it on them, and it's less anxiety driven.
Such good advice there, especially thinking it's not about me, because I think when you go in there and you want to control the situation, you want to deliver your message, it is quite a tricky balance that you could tip slightly into the person that becomes the loudest voice in the room that dominates the conversation, which is not what you want. So how can you assert yourself in a fast-paced meeting environment without becoming that person too?
Yeah, this is tricky. Like,
Yeah.
and I am sad that there are still meetings that are so poorly run that these chaos monkeys of sorts are just creating all of this blatherskite in the room. What I would offer is this. Number one, as an introvert, I can sit and perseverate about what I want to say until the end of the day. The longer I wait to speak, the more pressure builds. So, first rule is break your seal early. Within the first 5 minutes of the meeting, make a comment, get your voice in there, allow yourself to be seen. That way, it breaks the seal and lessens that pressure. The second thing I would offer, and I hope I'm not downloading too much here, but the getting your voice into those big meetings, a lot of times what my clients tell me is like, I don't want to just say something to say something. I don't want to add to the noise, so to speak. 100% add to the noise. And the trick I found to doing this is state the obvious. Be that person in the meeting that just states the obvious about whatever has been said, repeating it or reframing it in some way. State the obvious as a way of getting your voice in there and calling attention to yourself, and then move into your well thought out idea or topic that you want to use. So break the seal earlier and state the obvious.
And as I said at the very beginning of the podcast, my story began with those conversations between IT and multiple stakeholders. And you've got those non-technical stakeholders that you want to get on side, but you don't want to get too technical. You don't want to just start talking in acronyms and jargon, but equally you don't want to dumb it down too much and end up patronizing the people in front of you. Is that a way of delivering your message delivering that message without getting too complicated and without upsetting the people? Again, quite a balance, I would imagine.
Yeah, that is this like, how do you know exactly this? In my book, I have a series of principles, and one of those is know your audience.
Yeah.
So before you go into those meetings, the more you know about what they know and don't know is going to help you to find that place on the continuum of over explaining or under explaining whatever your data is. The key here, though, is principle number one, and that is you, then me. Whenever I start communicating with somebody, my goal is to speak about their situation, their understanding, their knowledge, their hopes, their fears, whatever it is. If I can call out and surface what I know about their situation or perspective before I get to my agenda and my data and my download and all that stuff, I'm more likely to get buy-in. Basically, it's building relevance and building shared understanding, because if I'm sharing, well, my understanding is you believe or know this about this and you worked with this, and now they can correct me and I can understand where to hit along the contextual continuum here. But yeah, start with you, then me, and you're going to build the relevance and you're going to get the buy-in from those key stakeholders without having to dumb down or use all acronyms.
And assuming you are able to win over that non-technical stakeholder by explaining how you're going to solve their problem, of course, there's also going to be a room of a couple of cynical techies that are going to be thinking, yeah, well, that's good, but how are you going to do that? And what about this technology, etc.? So what does leadership present look like for someone who is maybe more technical and analytical learning, and you want to communicate that message too?
What you're surfacing here is one of my key ideas of all communication is contextual. Right?
Yeah.
Depends on who you're talking to, what you're talking about, and the environment in which you're talking in. So understanding that is critical before determining how your presence. And I don't know how much time you have, Neil, because I could talk about presence all day. Like, this is the key. I'll give you frameworks for your content. I'll give you techniques to improve your delivery, but it's presence which really defines how your message is being received and how you show up. Do you feel resourceful? Do you go into a meeting feeling resourceful and agile to what's coming on? Or are you going in with a backstory and beliefs that have not necessarily served you in these situations? So when I'm working one-on-one with people, it's presence that we're working on. To support tech leaders, I would offer two things. Number one, eliminate the mitigate. This is what I mean. I know as an analytical person, the difference between 0.53 and 0.57, that's huge. There's a lot of difference between those two. But when I go into a meeting with non-tech people and I'm wanting to constantly couch or mitigate or hedge my data to make sure that I'm not speaking out of turn, I'm watering down, creating confusion, making the whole communication more complicated. It's important as a tech person to zoom out, pull out a little bit until I don't have to hedge my bet on what I'm saying. So I could say with that 0.53 or 0.57 that this has a proven success rate. I don't have to mitigate that. And that's what people want. People that are non-data want to hear clarity and confidence. Now, if you've got a whole tech room, you can say it has a proven success rate of just over 0.5. And that way you're mitigating a little bit. But number one, eliminate the mitigate. Teach yourself to zoom out and speak to the higher thing without having to hedge. You're going to appear more present in the meeting because you're not in your mind doing the calculation, and you're going to appear more confident as you deliver. The second thing, and this kind of touches on what you mentioned earlier, is to slow your movements. 5% is all you have to do. Because here's my problem. When we get into the good stuff, the data, the details, that I'm like, I get all amped up. I'll geek out for days. If you want to talk neuroscience, we will I get amped up. I start moving faster. We have to slow it down to appear a full leadership presence. And here's the trick. You can't just show up and expect that rush of adrenaline and all of your data and excitement to come across at a slower pace. You have to train for it. So here's what you do. If you are a data-driven leader and you are about to do a big, important presentation, go into a small room and do 20 jumping jacks, run in place for a minute, and then deliver your first line with a slow and clear cadence. You're getting your body into a heightened state and then training yourself to respond with a slower, intentional pace of voice and movement. And then when you get into the arena, you can do it because you've trained your body to handle that sort of rush and deliver. So eliminate the mitigate and slow your movements, just about 5%.
And it's funny you say that. I'm exactly the same as you. I'm someone that gets too excited too quickly. It just naturally happens. And of course, when you're in those meetings, there will be some people in the room that will inevitably try and push your buttons or just play devil's advocate, looking for cracks in your plans, and your mask can slip somewhat. So how important is your body language in remaining calm and showing that you've got the confidence there when it comes to presenting these technical ideas? I would imagine in many cases you are like that duck that's looking calm on top, but paddling like crazy underneath there. But what do you suggest here?
What a great metaphor you just gave. The dog that looks calm on top but paddling frantically under the water. Exactly. And to your point, body language is critical. And I don't think a lot of tech people appreciate just how much so, because we can focus on the data and ignore a lot of the superficial signals. But our brains, neuroscience tells us, our brains are hardwired to read the signals that somebody else is giving long before we hear their words or process what they're saying. How we show up and how our body is communicating is sending a larger amount of information than the information that we're actually speaking out there. So some research even shows it's like above 50% of our communication is determined just in our body language, and half of that is in our face. So I would offer this: be mindful, be deliberate about your gestures and your movement. Practice, make a game of practicing your one-hand gesture, your two-hand gesture, your movement. And virtually, this is a whole game changer. As we've all become more virtual, we have lost a lot of that body language. So it's important to, number one, get your hands into the screen. Let people see your hands. They like to see your hands. And you can still move around even virtually to make a point. So practice moving around and showing your hands virtually, and you're going to elevate the way you appear, just your presence as well as the connection to your message.
And I think both you and I remember a time when businesses would plan for 5, even 10 years forward. But of course, all that is completely out of the window now. The pace of technological change means even 2 years is possibly too long. And within a year, things have to adapt. They have to evolve. There is a lot of uncertainty and nobody knows where we're heading. So how can a technical leader maybe address and discuss uncertainty in a way that that builds trust and a rapport and helps people prepare and adapt for the inevitable over the next 12 months, 18 months, etc.
You're getting my adrenaline going. It's so true. Like everything is moving so fast right now, and uncertainty is the word of the day. I mean, in so many ways. And what people want more than precision is clarity and certainty. And so, as a tech leader, you don't need to have all the answers, but you do need to show up with full presence. I would offer a quick solution, and that is a framework of here's what we know, here's what we don't know. It's okay to name both of them. State the obvious. Use that as a catchphrase to answer any question, and then you don't have to hold yourself to knowing everything. This is part of my full uncertainty framework that I use when I'm teaching leaders how to speak in the moment. I won't go through the whole framework. I'm happy to share. If you go to my website, clearandcompellingplaybook.com, you can get the download of it. But it's the uncertainty framework. And key to that is speaking to what is known and what is unknown. And it will allow you to show up as a leader, even in those moments that feel so uncertain.
And I suspect everybody listening all around the world have all experienced death by PowerPoint. There are so many different ways of delivering a presentation. You can put too many words on there where people just end up reading the words and not listening to you. You can just put 2 words up there that will just maybe stimulate conversation. So I've got to ask, you've probably seen a lot of good and a lot of bad ways of doing this, but what's your take on slides during a technical presentation?
How much time do we have here? Oh my God, if we could just stop the death by PowerPoint. I love that you bring that up. There's a lot of research on best practices around slides and such, but here I would offer just one thing. The slide is meant to be supporting you, not hogging the spotlight or giving all the information. Like you said, 2 words just to ground and land what you're saying is so much better than a full paragraph or whatever. Guy Kawasaki was Apple brand manager, and he came up with the 10-20-30 rule. I don't know if you've heard of this. No more than 10 slides, no more than 20 minutes, no less than 30-point font. I find that to be a very useful tool when creating slide decks. Keep it short, let it be visual as well as words, and have it be as brief and on point as possible.
Fantastic advice. I think that answer alone will help so many people listening to our conversation. And also, how can a technical leader, when they're ready, how can they effectively manage up as well? Again, another big talking point. I hear a lot of people mentioning this, but any advice there?
Yeah, a few. And I don't know why I'm having PTSD. This is my situation. So oftentimes I was an analyst for I won't name the company, but oh my God, managing up was such a problem because they don't listen. And you can see clearly what the situation is, but they're not grasping it. What I would offer are a few things. One is create a brand around a metaphor that you can use to quickly get them to understand what you're saying. Secondly, come with solutions, not the problem. If you come with just the problem, they're going to be less likely to want to work with you. If you come with the problem and the solution that you're offering, they're going to start feeling like you're a partner. If you eventually come having tried something and then telling them, this is what I tried, this is how it works, what would you say? Then they start to trust you and they're going to give you more bandwidth and leeway. So the last thing I would say, whenever you're trying to manage up, it doesn't matter what kind of role you're in. If you're trying to manage up, focus less on the how and more on the why. When you can explain and build the relevance for them to see of what needs to happen on why versus how you're going to do it and how it's going to come through, then they're more likely to listen and take your advice and move forward.
Well, you have delivered so much gold today. So thank you so much for sharing your time and so many great insights. So I'm going to see if there's something we can do for you now, because some of the biggest names in business, VC funding and tech have either been guests or maybe just listened to this podcast. So is there a person you'd love to have a private breakfast or lunch with? Who would it be and why? He or she might just get to hear this. Let's see what we can manifest together. Who would it be?
Elon Musk. I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
it's a controversial figure. There's a lot of political noise around him, but I'm fascinated with the way he multitasks in some ways, the way he communicates, the way his mind works. I would love to sit down and unpack a lot of his decisions and a lot of his movement. I listen to a lot of podcasts with him, and it still just blows me away the way his mind works. So I would want to sit down with him. Yeah.
Wow, what an answer. Well, I will put that out into the universe, and if anyone can make sense of that universe and make something happen, it would be him. So if there's anybody out there that is a friend of Elon as well, please send that message and let's see what we can do. Now, earlier in our conversation, you mentioned you've got a few downloads on your website and people might want to connect with you too because you've shared so much today. So how can they carry on that conversation? Where should they go?
Well, my book, Clear and Compelling, is going to come out in September. It'll be available on Amazon, but you can go to clearandcompellingplaybook.com, clearandcompellingplaybook.com. You can sign up for the launch and you can get all the resources that we mentioned. And if you're a tech leader, this book is written specifically for you. It's 20 years of coaching technical, STEM, data-driven leaders on communication. So it's all the communication strategies I've been using for the last 20 years.
Awesome. So this episode will go out towards the end of August. So I will get a pre-order link on there as well so people can find the book nice and easily. But as I said, we've covered so much in a short amount of time and so much golden advice. And once again, thank you for joining me and sharing that with me today.
Thank you so much, Neil. Love your show.
Wow. I think that was a masterclass in communication and not in the abstract buzzword-laden sense either. What stood out to me was how he doesn't just teach theory. He equips leaders to navigate real-world meeting rooms and keynote speeches on stage, full of unpredictable dynamics, big personalities and high expectations. And whether it is reframing nerves as excitement, or breaking the seal in a meeting, or using metaphors that make data stick, I think his tools are grounded, accessible, and frankly long overdue in the world of tech. And the takeaway I'm still sitting here with is presence. Because in a time of endless noise, I think showing up with clarity, with empathy, a sense of calm, I think all these things collectively can play a critical part in delivering the most powerful message that you can. And all this is before you even say a word. But what do you think? Have we underestimated how communication shapes influence in technical roles? Have you been in business meetings with multiple stakeholders where people zone out when the technical person starts talking? Are you doing enough to make sure that your message lands in the way that you intend? Let me know your thoughts on this one. I'm sure we've all had experiences on this. You've heard from me, you've heard from my guests. Over to you. techblogwriter@outlook.com, techtalksnetwork.com. You can leave me an audio message over there and just at Neil C. Hughes on all the social channels. But we're out of time for today. I'll be back again soon with another guest, but thank you for listening as always. Speak with you all soon. Bye for now.